Hey, how's it going all? Just want to do a quick lesson on with Matthew 24:23 to 24 as the sort of central piece. It reads, "Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect." And to me, this group, the elect, which is mentioned many times in the Bible, they are the ones that either when Christ was here on earth, they would be physically the ones closest to him and, best understand his message and his teaching, his mind. And those who are here on this earth are the ones who would be most close to him in a spiritual distance, however that's measured. One of the things would obviously be a group that's pursuing truth, and that would not be the only thing, but the group that are pursuing and pushing the truth most fervently. But there will be enough deception to even potentially, deceive the very elect. And it says in this verse that it's not possible, and it will not happen. But it could be close. It's a sophisticated enough deception that it could even deceive the very people that are closest to and understand the mind of Jesus Christ or Yahushua the most. That's possible in human form, and these are the elect. And so, to me, the one major point that I want to make about this whole lesson is that if you're going to take advice from somebody, it's okay to ask them questions, about other things, not just simply the topic that they're talking about. And Flat Earth and Ball Earth to me is a great example of you can start to get a feel for the fact that a lot of Ball Earthers, and I don't want to put them all in the same category because I was one before, so it's possible obviously to come out of that thinking, just sort of relying on others, and in particular Freemasons and our government, which is insane. But it's you can kind of get that there's something deeper going on. There's deeper beliefs that are more sinister than just simply acknowledging that there's no curvature to the earth. And so to me, the main thing that it's okay to ask, and especially if you're being ministered to by a quote unquote religious person or religious leader, is ask them why they want to live forever. Why, if there is an afterlife or they believe strongly there is one, why do they want to live forever? What are some reasons? First, if they haven't thought about that, that's scary, and that doesn't mean that they're not sincere, but I would definitely ask, because a lot of people have different ideas of heaven and what it will be. And the Bible only alludes to what the kingdom of heaven will be like. There's no way, even if it were to be described with any kind of clarity, that we could really understand. Just like if someone tried to explain to us the world that we would experience when we were a child, we wouldn't understand. First, we wouldn't understand the language, English, or whatever language it is. So we literally would not be able to comprehend what the person's saying that we are about to experience on earth, that we could actually see and touch and feel and all that. So to be able to articulate, first of all, the spirit world in and of itself, not easy, impossible, and then much less what the purpose of those spirits are and what they'll be assigned to do, in the kingdom of heaven. It's not possible. So, but to ask somebody, why do you want to live forever? That's a fair question, and the things that come to my mind are, first of all, there's just a natural feeling to to not have a discontinuity, to experience continuity. We all experience that as humans. We all, that's why we wake up. That's why people go through difficult things and still push forward. And so, in my opinion, why some people go through ridiculous amounts of, pain, but still push forward. Is that there's this sort of, in accounting terms, it's called a going concern. That's when the sort of opposite happens, is where there's worry that, a corporation will not be able to exist going forward, and it raises alarms. It's we sort of have the sort of opposite thing where we have this sort of intrinsic desire to exist, and to continue on existing. And in my opinion, in an earthly sense, it leads a lot of us into sin, trying to, extend and lengthen our earthly life. But so that, just from a very base perspective, that exists, obviously, for everybody, whether spiritual or not. But to me, there is a notion of wanting to understand why we're all here. And ultimately, understand and learn more about the entity that created all this, and like the pleasures that he's able to create, even if we haven't experienced many of them ourselves. Ideally, we would like, that entity to allow us to experience those, and potentially to not have those, experiences diminish in any way, and then potentially be magnified and heightened. And I've talked about in a prior video how I remember hearing a friend of a friend describe their experience on MDMA, a drug, and how kind of euphoric, but also how stable his mind was in terms of like, being very content, not wanting to, he was in Vegas, he didn't want to like hit on girls or, run around or do anything really. He was just kind of standing there, like sort of in like a trance-like state, just content. And to me, this would only be a glimpse into the things that God is able to allow one to experience. So we want that, and just to be creative. There's many days, especially in the corporate world, it's anti-creative, and to me, an entity, whether you agree with his creation and his narrative or not, it's incredibly creative, to create an earth and put billions and billions of humans on it and give them a sense that they're autonomous when they're not, and all that kind of, like, everything. That's not a trivial thing. That's extremely creative. There's storylines within storylines within storylines, embedded within storylines, and it's all credit to the top producer, the executive producer of this whole thing, the Most High. So to want to be in that Spirit's presence, to know more about it, to be able to do things that he's able to do, reproduce them, all that kind of stuff, to me are very valid reasons to want to live on beyond this physical life. To understand purity, to understand love and all these things that this entity embodies. There's a lot of other things that this entity would represent. He's invented all these words: love, hate, mercy, anger. All these, our language is something he came up with, and ways for him to describe certain aspects of himself. But they're not limited to that. Obviously, he would have many other facets of himself that one could discover, if they're given the ability to approach him. And that's an exciting thing. And honestly, like to be able to, to know truth, and all these kind of things, you would require someone to be, again, close to the source. The author of all truth and all lies is the Most High. So someone who genuinely wants to live forever and wants to be close to God would be someone who would be passionate about truth by definition, in my opinion. And so, all these things that one can only experience and experience fully in the presence of God are valid reasons to want to live forever. Another thing is just to constantly learn. It's like if a person has a strong curiosity, wants to learn, dig deeper, there are certain questions that we have even now that cannot be answered by humans. And I think that even in this verse, Jesus even saying, then if any man shall say unto you, he's getting at what I feel, especially in this time, that it's okay to not trust man fully. You only want to go, in this time that I feel is extremely spiritual, you only want to be guided by people who are truly spiritual, and potentially have the Spirit of God in them and are on a path to return that Spirit back to the Most High. Because that's the only sort of safe place to go, and it should be much more obvious in this time of evil, who has that Spirit and who doesn't. And so it's very important to ask these questions. He says there shall arise false prophets, false Christs, that they'll even be powerful, have signs and wonders. In this modern age, I feel like one of them will be they might have a huge following. They'll have a lot of people who will support their stance. In my opinion, God gives all these people kind of blind zombie followers. Like Beyonce is a great example. She has this quote-unquote beehive of millions of people who just blindly defend someone that they don't even know. All this kind of stuff, So all these things are prophesied to happen. They're happening currently. And, we have to be on guard for that, and it's okay to be like cold, and to ask hard questions. We would not be prudent to not do that, especially in this time. And you're not being rude. It's like, it's okay to, like, if you're talking, and I've done this in discussions, it's like if you're talking about ball earth and flat earth, there's no subject that's off limit after that. If you're gonna, even our high school teachers, like I said, if I knew this flat earth stuff in high school, I would have been kicked out of school and probably kicked out of my family, because I would have dug deeper. I would not have just asked, hey, like, what about the curvature or lack of curvature? I would ask, like, questions to my teachers about God. Like, what do you think? Where did all this come from? And, like, I would have been more bold, and that would not have worked out well, with the education system we have in place right now. And so nothing's off limits, especially if you're pursuing truth. We have to do it, very vigorously, or else we could be susceptible to being deceived by all these different things that God has set up. This resistance to truth, which God has set up because he's the author of the left and the right-hand side. He's created the Christ, the real Christ, and he's also created the Antichrist, the false Christ, and the false prophet. So ask hard questions. Don't be afraid to ask people certain things about the way they live, their behavior on earth, day to day. What do they think? Their purity levels. See how honest they are. See if they understand one sin equals all sins. And then it's okay to ask them about their thoughts on the afterlife. Why are they doing this? What is motivating that person, those individuals, to teach about religious topics, about spiritual topics? What is their real motivation? Find out, what is really governing, their desire to, like, teach. And, you hopefully when you go down that trail, you'll find things that are consistent and people doing it for the right reasons. But just like this verse says, there'll be many who are not doing it for the right reasons. And we are required, to seek out, the lies amongst those people, and potentially warn others, of the lies that we feel that person is sharing.